Hey, what's up guys? My name is Caleb and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I have something a little different for y'all. I'm actually going to be doing a reaction video to Dave Ramsey's 7 baby step plan. And now I've not really heard a whole lot about Dave Ramsey. I've heard his name brought up to me a couple of times, but I've never actually seen any of his content before. I just felt like it would make a pretty good video, so yeah, we're just going to jump right into it and see what you guys think. And I'm going to try and give some feedback on what he says a little bit and see if I agree with him or if I don't agree with him. Hope you guys enjoy.
When I started teaching this stuff, I was first teaching people how to get out of debt, live on a budget, be generous, became Financial Peace University. It used to be called Life After Debt. And it started becoming what we now call the baby steps. And they have become the proven plan, the shortest distance between where you are now and wealth. And we need a path to run on because the way you eat an elephant, it's overwhelming. Do I do my 401k with the match or my kid's college? Or do I have an emergency fund? Or do I pay on this 18% credit card debt? Or.
So yeah, this is definitely what can happen, especially if you don't really know a whole lot about finance and investing. Is as soon as like people like me or like other people on YouTube start throwing out all these terms to someone who doesn't really know what all those different things are, it's like you have a lot of options and it can be really overwhelming because people don't even know how those different things like work. And so it's hard to figure out what to prioritize, like if you should be starting like a savings first or if you should just start buying stocks first. So I'm curious how his plan's kind of laid out here.
Saving $1,000 for a starter emergency fund. This is just a small buffer between you and life before we start tackling the debt.
But you got any money that's above $1,000, maybe you got $10,000 in a savings account. We're going to put it all on baby step 2, and baby step 2 is the famous one. That's the debt snowball, where you list your debts smallest to largest. You pay minimum payments on everything but the little one, and you attack the little one with a vengeance.
So the big key here is you always want to pay your minimum payment, of course, because if you don't do your minimum payment, your credit score is going to hurt so bad. But it's called like the snowball method, and it's basically where you take all your debts and you take the one that's the smallest in dollar amount and you just attack that one first and you pay the minimum on the other ones. And this will make it to where you have like less different lines of credit outstanding. So like if you have like 3 debts, one's at $1,000, one's at $200, and one's at $100, it's a lot easier for you to just pay off that $100 and potentially even the $200 one before you start tackling the $1,000 one. And because of this, now you only have one outstanding line of credit that you're dealing with the toxic interest rates on. So I totally agree with what he's saying here. The only thing is I think that you really only need $500 for an emergency before you can get started on the debt, because $500 even can be kind of a challenge for some people. And I feel like it's pretty difficult for people to see that number without all those good financial habits and not like feel like they can spend it or tap into it or like reward themselves for getting to $1,000. The other way you can do it too is just save up a month's worth of your living expenses. I think that's the best way to do it, and then you can really get things started. But the key here is to take that money and put it in a place where you're not going to touch it unless your car breaks down, your house catches on fire, you get fired from your job, you know, those kinds of things. Like an emergency isn't like, oh, we ran out of cereal, babe, like can you go to the store? Like no, not that type of stuff. Like actual emergencies. And yeah, everything after that you should be dumping onto your debt.
Baby step 2, you should be debt free but your house. Now you may have to sell a stupid boat. You may have to take an extra job. But
I personally am not a huge fan of the taking an extra job route. I would rather you get a job that just pays higher. But I do agree with him in that you should sell stuff if you need to. So if you have a bunch of like furniture or just like things that you don't really need, you know, go on a selling rampage and do that too. Because saving up that $500 to $1,000, I think he might have even said this too, but it should only take you a couple of weeks. Like if it takes you more than 30 days or like maybe like 60 days, like 2 months max, then you really need to reassess your income situation or your spending habits. Like my income in the last 2 years it's gone up like a little bit, but the amount of, the percentage of that I'm able to put aside and save is like substantially more than it used to be. And that's because of habits. It's not because I'm being paid more. So I think that that's also a really important thing. Like if I were to redo these 7 steps, I'd probably say step 1 is honestly just go on a crazy learning rampage, you know, pick up these books that I got over here and just start reading about finances and how like rich people view money and how they view it as a tool, because I feel like a lot of people are living this consumer life day to day, and so saving up $500 could potentially take someone half a year because they just don't know how to do it, or like, you know, they take 2 steps forward and they take 3 steps back, you know, so.
Are debt-free inside of 2 years.
Yeah, and that's with doing it with some gazelle intensity, like you talk about in Financial Peace University, right? You have that income
Think
back
about
in
what
your
it'd be
life.
like to have no payments but a house payment. Wow.
We're breathing easy.
That's how it should be, though. Like, that's just so relaxing to not have to worry about all that crazy debt. That's why it blows my mind that people are willing to go to school and go $100,000 into debt. Now, granted, you know, there is some risk involved, and I understand that not everyone has the money to go to college and stuff without going into debt. But there's such a high percentage of them that go into college and either don't end up graduating, they drop out, they can't get the job they wanted, or they just weren't taught the financial habits that they need to get out of debt once they do get that job. But I think what's important with these is take the numbers that are actually in your situation and like chart them out. Like be like, okay, so these are my expenses every month for the foreseeable future. This is my income. What's the difference there? So you have, you know, say $850 left of like non-survival money. And then like do the math and figure out like exactly what month your debt will be paid off. And if you don't do that, what the interest rate is going to do to your debt. It's really about like, you just got to be motivated and you got to want to do it, but you got to have those spending habits and those money habits and saving habits.
We save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. This is the final buffer where we say we're never going back into debt because we are the bank now.
Yep. And if you have $20,000 cash in the bank, 3 to 6 months of expenses, whatever it is, and you have no payments, you are the third pig in the 3 little pigs, the one that's in the brick house when the big bad wolf comes. When you have that emergency fund and you're debt free, now you're ready to build wealth. And in baby step 4, you put 15% of your income aside into good growth stock mutual funds in retirement plans.
The only thing is I think that 6 months of expenses before you start saving money into a retirement account like a Roth or a 401k is kind of excessive, because if your monthly expenses are like kind of in the higher range, I mean, that could be like upwards of like $10,000 or $15,000. So I think that like $5,000 is a lot more reasonable. So if you can just put aside that $5,000, I mean, that almost covers like every emergency, like minus, you know, your house burning down or something like that. Like if your car breaks down, like $5,000 is plenty of money for you to get like a car, just like day of, like within 24 hours. If you have $5,000, you can go find a car. And the other thing I was going to say here is that really with this $5,000, like in my opinion, you don't necessarily even need this to be in cash. So like, you know, if you know how to use credit cards, this could be great too, because you can use your credit cards that have high balances. Like I have one that's like 6.4 thousand is the credit limit on it. And you can use this as your emergency fund if you really need to. So say that I have $0 in the bank as far as like 6 months of expenses goes. You know, I have that $1,000 emergency fund, but then say my car breaks down and I have to go buy like a $3,500 car the next day. I could literally just put that on my credit card and then just like grind my butt off to like try and pay that off in the next like 30 days, maybe 60 days. And I could deal with that, like, you know, small interest payment. Like we're talking about like a matter of $20 to like $50 or something to buy yourself that extra 30 days. Now you obviously, this is like not the best habit. It's taken a little bit of a risk because you never want to be carrying that for a long period of time. And ideally you never want to pay any interest at all. But yeah, that's my opinion on it.
And if you exhausted Roth and match and still are not to 15%, then go on to a traditional 401k.
Okay, I completely agree with that order too. The only thing here though is I think that 15% is a little not as high as it should be. So in my opinion, I'm thinking like 20 to 25% is what I would recommend to people if possible. The percentage of your income that you put aside in savings has a huge correlation to like how soon you can retire, because that money is just going to grow to an insane amount in the future if you put it away now. And there's no reason to stop at 15%. Like if you can get up to 50%, then power to you, dude. Like definitely do that. Like I've heard of people even putting away like 80 to 85% of their money for like 10 years and they can retire like when they're 35 because they just put copious amounts of money aside and they lived like basically on ramen noodles. And if you're only needing like a grand or a grand and a half a month and you're making like $110,000 a year, I mean, yeah, you could probably put away about 75% of that. Like, what do you need it for? Are you going to buy a boat?
But do Roths before traditional and do match before Roths. While you are doing baby steps 4, you're also going to be doing 5 and 6 simultaneously.
Absolutely. So baby step 5 is where we're saving for our children's college fund.
Now, they have to go to college debt-free. They cannot participate in this epic student loan system failure that is called America right now. It is.
Oh my God, I'm so glad he's saying this. I feel like every time I say this to people, like, I don't really get the reaction that I would expect. Like, people almost get offended when I say this. So I'm so glad that he's saying it because, oh my gosh, there's so many people that get just convinced that this is like the only way to go, kind of, is going to college. And they're kind of like roped into it when they might not necessarily want to do it, or they feel pressured by their parents or their friends or society in general to go to college. And then people get like screwed for so many years and they lose like a lot of their earlier, days of their financial journey because they're stuck in this debt system. And with student loans, like, someone fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure you can't like go bankrupt on your student loans. Like, you can do that with like credit and stuff like that, but your student loans like stays with you and it's like really bad. So I hope that changes in the future because I think that education is very, very important.
It's horrible out there. Do not let your kids go in debt. You do not have to go to debt. Go to community college for free for 2 years, get scholarships. Our student loan problem is a parenting problem. Mom and dad let kids sign up for crap they couldn't afford.
There's a 50-50 chance or less these days that your kid's going to go to college.
And graduate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This less than 50% chance they're going to graduate.
Might not even graduate.
Beyond that, if you can find any money, you do that on baby step 6, and that's pay off your house.
So I think that's pretty good. The only thing I wish he kind of included in these steps were like, at what point do you buy the house? Because he kind of left that out, and it's like, if you don't even have that $1,000 in step 1, like he's saying, how would you possibly have a down payment for a house? Like, I don't understand how that could work. So I wish he would include kind of like where to put that in, because personally, I think that it should be at around the same time as you starting your retirement accounts. But then there's other people out there that say, as soon as you have like a tiny emergency savings, like, screw the retirement accounts, start saving up for a down payment on a house, because once you get your foot in the door with that, then you can start growing your wealth like way quicker because you're able to control more assets at the same time. So if you put aside like 10 grand into a Roth, you still have that 10 grand or whatever it grows to. But if you put 10 grand as a down payment on a house, hypothetically, now you're in control of like a $150,000 asset.
You are gazelle intense, like a gazelle running from a cheetah. When you're in 4 through 7, you're not intense anymore. You are now intentional. You're just doing it on purpose. But you're no longer on beans and rice. You're on beans and rice, rice and beans. Scorched earth on 1 through 3 till you get those 3 things done. Now, get that house paid off. The average person following this stuff is paying off their home in about 7 or 8 years.
Wow, that's actually pretty impressive. It sounds like that's based on people that have actually taken his specific program. But yeah, if you can pay off your house in 7 or 8 years, I mean, wow. Like, yeah, you could really get ahead. Like, even if you could pay it off if you could take out the mortgage for 30 years, but pay it off in 15 even, like, that's amazing, because then you can start putting money towards a second property. That's really cool. I think that those results are really empowering. I'm stoked to hear that.
And then you continue to build wealth, and you raise your generosity, and you continue to build wealth, and you raise your generosity, and you enjoy the money.
That's where it gets fun.
So that's really cool, honestly, that he made his step 7 to basically give back, because I think that's a really important thing that sometimes people miss out on is, growing wealth and getting money is all great and everyone wants to be rich. You know what I'm saying? But the important thing is your time and your quality time and your relationships with your friends and your family and stuff like that are what make it enjoyable to have that much abundance, because you could be a billionaire, and if you have nobody in your life that you love or that loves you, you're going to be the poorest person on earth, honestly. So I think that it's really important to keep that in perspective and always have that reason in the back of your head as to, like, why is it so important to you to grow your wealth? Because if you, don't have your family and friends involved, or, you know, someone that you're able to share it with. Like you want to be giving back to your community and doing something. Use that financial freedom to spend more time with your family and your kids and your wife or your husband or whatever you're doing. Or hang out with your friends more, or like go see your mom and dad more and stuff like that. Overall, I definitely agree with most of the things he said in this video. The only things I wish he added in there were like, you know, what you could do if you like don't want to go to college or like don't want to have kids, or at what point should you save for the down payment on the property, because I think that's like a really important step that I would add in. Other than that, I feel like this guy basically says everything that I would say, so that's pretty cool to see. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope I kind of was able to shed some light and stuff on things that he said and give my own opinion in an informative way for y'all. So if you like this video, please drop a fat like down below. If you want to see more content just like this, please hit that subscribe button down below as well with the little notification bell next to it. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.